So as of late, I have been home, been talking with family, and it's come to my attention that one of my nephews will be starting the literary course next year after this current year is over, when he goes into, I want to say, the end of middle school, freshman maybe. I'm not paying attention to ages, because they're not my kids, I don't care. That apparently he's really upset about it because he signed up for the advanced English course, and he's like, the first thing that they're going to make us read is Lord of the Flies, and I'm so aggravated about it because it's a boring book. To which, yeah, I'll give it to him. It is kind of a boring book if you don't understand what it's about. So that's what I want to talk about today. Because by the time this video goes up, he'll already be in the middle of reading it, so I really don't care. Really quick though, thank you to the subscribers, the patrons, and the people who find this video. This is just going to be a really quick, you're reading Lord of the Flies wrong, and I'm about to explain to you why. First of all, I feel like it is imperative that we explain Lord of the Flies and all of its backgrounds before we even start on it. Lord of the Flies is a 1954 novel by the Nobel Prize-winning British author William Golding. The plot concerns a group of British boys who are stationed on an uninhabited island and their disastrous attempts to govern themselves. It was made into a 1963 film and a 1990 film, both of which explore elements and overall the general story. Themes included in this book are the tension between groupthink and individuality, between rational and emotional reactions, and between morality and immorality. The novel, which was Golding's debut, was generally well received. It was named in the Modern Library 100 Best Novels, reaching number 41 on the editor's list and 25 on the reader's list. In 2003, it was listed at number 70 on the BBC's The Big Read poll. And in 2005, Time magazine named it as one of the 100 best English language novels published between 1923 and 2005, and included it in its list of the 100 best young adult books of all time, popular reading in schools, especially in the English-speaking world. Lord of the Flies was ranked third in the nation's favorite books from school in a 2016 UK poll. You're probably thinking, yeah, that's all well and good, but what does that have to do with this? Well, here's the thing. I remember having to read Lord of the Flies in school, and I remember exactly what my teacher did. He was explaining to us that we were going to read it, all this other jazz and things like that, and he walked out of the classroom door, and we were alone the entire class period. And when he came back in, he was a little disappointed to realize we had not dissolved into being screaming horrible people at each other, trying to, stab each other with our safety scissors. Because, and as an adult I can say this now, but as a, fresh 15-year-old, I didn't have the backbone for it. In the classroom that he had left, the idea is the authority was removed, therefore we could do anything. No, that's not how this works. The authority in the classroom was removed. The authority in the school and the world over was not removed. Therefore, it's not like we're dumb and we're gonna just, go off on some weird tangent and decide, yes, it is time to be Chaos Gremlins all day, every day, 24/7, 365. That's not how this works. And I feel like people, kind of forget this in the book, and I sometimes think they skipped it in the movies too, because the movies don't really make a point of showing you it, but there's a time skip. I'll say that again. There is a time skip. After losing control of the signal fire that they try to make in the very beginning of the book, there's a time skip. And when the next chapter starts, everyone's hair is several inches longer and their clothes have rotted to shreds, and they're still just kind of chilling, indicating it's been at most months since the first signal fire was not, successful. But they've been living just fine. It takes the terrible imperialism mind-poisoned excessively British boys in the actual book several months to commit a single act of intentional violence. Even the one child written as an actual sociopath takes several months before they actually commit to basically what I like to call purge ideology, there ain't help coming for you. So why should it matter? And when they do turn on each other, it's because there's an unspecified world war happening. Now, because of the time period of when the book was published and how the boys are dressed, most people take it as, at most, either really, really late end of World War I or very middle of World War II. You can take either option, but an unspecified world war is happening while all of the book is going on. It is a backdrop for the actual book itself because several of the boys indicate their fathers are in positions of military. Just so we're clear, several of the boys come from military families. They indicate that their fathers are fighting in the war currently going on. That is the backdrop. The reason why I bring this up is because, well, a pilot's corpse crash lands on the island post-dogfight, and the children mistake the parachute for a monster, and it spirals into paranoia. Because children inherit the legacy and trauma of violence from the adults waging war around them. They are not very old in the book. They're not even that old in the movie, despite the clips you're seeing. They're kids. They're kids that still get scared of the dark. Their skills and everything are shown to be lackluster at best. But the world around them is going on, and that means that their little bubble can be broken at any moment, and when the soldier parachutes in dead and scares them because they're children, that paranoia and fear infects them like nothing else. Because they inherit this fear from each other. You'll notice, even in haunted houses, people feed off of each other's fear. It's amazing. If one person is really, really scared before you even get into a haunted house, by the time they set foot in a group of like 2 or 3 or more, or even just them by themselves, they have ramped themselves up so much with fear that it doesn't matter that it's all fake. In the moment that they step foot into the haunted house, they are, to everybody's knowledge, their rational mind even knows it, there's nothing scary here. We're safe. We're well protected. Their fear has transformed that haunted house into a place of untold horrors and murder. Same thing with these kids. They are not necessarily safe, right? They're stabbing pigs to eat them. Realistically, that's what's happening. But the fear of that one soldier and his death parachute scares them enough that now they're looking at each other and assuming, well, what about you? What if you're also a monster? Their fear is winning out. Because herder, in the real world, it would never happen like in Lord of the Flies. It didn't happen that way in Lord of the Flies either. You just haven't read it since high school, if ever, and you don't remember what actually happened in the book. And to be quite frank, the dude who wrote the book, Mr. Golding, even admitted to being a dick when he was writing it. And yes, he did. I'm going to direct you to the real-life Lord of the Flies, which occurred in the 1960s, when 6 Tongan schoolboys got stranded on a desert island for over a year before being rescued by an Australian fisherman who, it should be noted, later took all 6 as crew members because the reason they were out in the first place was because they wanted to see the world and named his ship the Ada after the island they were stranded on. Not that anybody cares, but I figured that'd be a really good point to make. The point is, nobody died. These 6 boys were stranded on a year in an island nobody even bothered to check on, and the only injuries that occurred were completely accidental, and when one of the boys broke his legs falling down a cliff, the others braced it and looked after him so well that it healed perfectly. If they argued, then they would literally go to opposite sides of the island until they cooled off. After leaving the island, they remained friends for the rest of their lives. There's even photos of them as adults with their rescuer and other members of his crew when they finally got to be adults. I read about this in Rutger Bregman's Humankind, a book I cannot recommend highly enough, but if you don't want to go and read a whole book about the inherent goodness of humanity, which again you really should, then the relevant excerpt can be found again online. You also should consider reading the article about these boys, named Sion, Stephen, Kolo, David, Luke, and Mano. Those are the boys that were stranded on that island. They showed tremendous cooperation as well as the ability to share and farm scarce resources, to care for each other in times of sickness and injury. Not only that, but by the time they were finally rescued, they'd set up a little community. They set up their own little fun place to be, so that way they could actually work and live on an island, hoping that somebody was going to save them, but making sure that if nobody was coming to save them, they could at least live long enough to hopefully maybe get help. They even had a badminton court. I'm not gonna say like it was, amazing, but they found ways to work together. And before somebody says, oh, they were probably older. The oldest was 16 at time of rescue. The youngest was 13. So, take that for what you will. What I'm going to tell you is this. Humans are not inherently, sociopaths who want to murder everything. But in Lord of the Flies, it is a commentary on a couple of different things. Number one, the boys in The Lord of the Flies are of British descent. Meaning, during the time period that this was written, yes, British boys were raised to be very, very, I don't want to say cruel, but I will say stuck up. Meaning, social class was everything to them. It's the reason why they keep squabbling with each other. It's the reason why Merryweather, because he is the leader of the all-boys Catholic school, is chosen to be the leader. Because there's still a lot of weight held at this time in history, that the church holds a lot of weight and power behind it. Not to mention the fact that he's a couple months older than everybody else, except the one boy who's actually a sociopath, Roger. We'll get to him. If I remember to get to him, we'll get to him. It's not like children don't set up pecking orders and hierarchies. They do. It's just this took it to the ultimate extreme of Lord of the Flies. Of the hierarchies have now made it so inherently, basically counterproductive to these children that they can't get anything done is because they keep arguing and squabbling with each other too much. People argue and squabble all the time. But usually for the greater good, get off your high horse is usually the order of the day. We have plenty of time to be mad and angry and squabble with each other when we're actually safe and not in the middle of nowhere. Then we can be mad at each other. Until that time, the smart thing to do is get over ourselves and get off the island. Realistically, that's the answer to most stuff if you end up on a deserted island. There's gotta be a way off, and if there's not a way off that is immediately apparent, we gotta wait out until we can get somebody to notice us and save us. But again, Lord of the Flies is a commentary on this to an extreme degree. Now, supposedly, Mr. Golding, the man who wrote the original Lord of the Flies, was... Fries? Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get you? Hi, can I get a Lord of the Fries special? Oh yeah, super mega diabetes size. Got it. Jesus Christ. Mr. Golding was asked specifically, what if Lord of the Flies had happened, but it was an all-girls school instead? His response to that was, well, the girls probably would have gotten off the island a lot faster. Probably nobody would have died. Realistically, it's not that women don't know how to squabble with each other, it's just we're socially conditioned to do things a little differently than our male counterparts. Again, not a bad thing, it's just we're raised differently. Now, somebody also said to me in high school while we were reading this book, can you imagine if there had been boys and girls? And I was like, oh my god, no, I can't imagine boys and girls, because I imagine not too much would get done for the first couple months, assuming anything got done, because, they're teenagers. Teenage boys like to show off to their crushes. They do. It's nothing bad. It's really not. But realistically, yeah, no. If you know, you know. My point is, Lord of the Flies is not this deep, dark look into the psychological well-being of humans and how quickly we turn on each other and, well, no. Most of the time, we're pretty content just trying to live our lives, and if we end up in a situation where we gotta work with people we don't really know, then we're gonna work with people we don't really know, because, hey, if it gets us to the end goal a whole lot faster, so be it. Now, I was actually talking to a friend of mine. Hi, Sam. And she made the point of like, oh, well, what about like the TV show Survivor? And I was like, that's different. That is people who want $1 million prize, and the name of the game is literally backstabbing each other in order to get that money. That's a completely different thing. You'll notice at the beginning, though, the people who usually get backstabbed really fast are the ones that actually do most of the work in the camp, because they're playing the game as a game. The money is an added benefit for them, but they live pretty comfortable lives outside of it. People who want to be, I don't know, like TV famous for 15 seconds are the ones that really do the majority of the backstabbing, which, again, it's not a bad thing. You can play the game that way, just, you're gonna get hated by the people who are watching it. That's the nice way of saying it. Lord of the Flies is not some deep, dark look into the psychological nuances of mankind and blah blah blah. I will say, though, the one character that is incredibly well written in this, even though he is a psychopath, is actually Roger. Now, he is a boy who is described as being bigger than most of the other boys because of just how much muscle he has on them. He's often very quiet, and he is Merryweather, the main, I don't want to say antagonist, the main driving force of all the negativity in the camp's right hand. In the very beginning of the book, he is very dismissive of all the younger kids, and he keeps throwing rocks at them, but he's purposely missing. He even says it in his head, he's purposely missing because the idea of, well, the adults are going to find us soon, and if I hit one of them, they'll cry to the adults, and then I'll be in trouble. The idea of authority is what keeps his hand in check. When the time skip happens, and now they're hunting the boars on the island, he's very happy about this development because he now has an outlet for his aggressive tendencies. Then, when the parachute happens and all the paranoia starts ramping up and Merryweather is beginning to question everybody and everything around him, Roger is still quiet throughout all of this, but he is very quick to jump on the, murder seems like the obvious choice here for what we're doing. Not because he honestly thinks it's a good choice, but because he has been written to be incredibly psychopathic. And I say that is because that's literally what it said on the Wikipedia page, and I'm gonna say this right now. No, I don't think Roger was supposed to be written as psychopathic, but I do think he was supposed to be written as a boy with a lot of unbalanced emotions, leaning more towards anger and aggression than anything else, and it manifested in ways of hurting other people because of his own inability to keep his emotions in check. Again, it's not a bad thing. Actually, it's okay to write characters like that. Because in this time period, this unspecified world war that's happening, 19 whatever, therapy wasn't quite readily available to everybody. Meaning, if he did have any sort of mental shortcomings of not being able to regulate emotions, nobody was going to double check him. Because nobody was double checking anybody back then. Not a bad thing. It was just how the world worked. So it's a good character to write, but Roger was very much written with the mindset of he has unmitigated emotions? Unmitigated emotional control. There we go. And it's manifesting in negative ways. I am not any kind of mental health professional. I have friends who are, but not me specifically. So the reason why I bring this up is twofold. The paranoia that these kids are facing because they've been alone for months on end on an island is understandable because they've been scared on and off throughout the entire time that they are on the island. But the fact that Merryweather is so happy to be in charge and is looking for ways to make the other boys really think that he has all the answers, even though he doesn't, he's going to take it. And that's not a bad thing. Fact of the matter is, it's how most, dicks keep control of the populace. Make them scared. Make them think you have an answer, even if you really don't know anything. Illusion, let me rephrase that. Make them think you have total control of everything, even if it's illusion. That's a good thing. Wizard of Oz, right? The movie and the book series. I don't know if people know that's a book. Maybe we'll talk about that again, because we're back on our book stuff. In The Wizard of Oz, the wizard himself makes grand entrances, makes everybody think that he's some weird floating head with all the explosions and everything else. It's the reason why when Dorothy and them find out he's just an old man pulling levers and pushing buttons behind a curtain, he says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, because now the illusion is broken. He is not some old powerful wizard who knows all, who sees all. He is a man pretending to know the answers to stuff and hoping that you never catch on to the fact that he is lying about his knowledge of stuff. It's the same thing in Lord of the Flies. They are hoping that their little illusion of control is never broken, because to break that illusion would be to break the fact that help might not be coming. And that's really what they're banking on in a good portion of the book. It's not a bad thing, realistically, to say that the book was written for a specific audience in mind. It really wasn't. Golding has even admitted, as a debut novel, that's what Lord of the Flies was, he wrote it for a very specific purpose. But he also was doing it just to mess with people. Like, do you know how far people would have to be pushed to get to this point? And he said people, not children, people. If it was a commentary on something, then yeah, it was a commentary on something. However, and I cannot stress this enough, Lord of the Flies is equivalent to The Purge. If it's saying something about something, it's doing it in such a roundabout way, most people are gonna miss the roundabout way, because the obvious metaphor is lost to them, because the obvious metaphor was lost on maybe the author. In all honesty, I dislike the Purge movies for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Purge movies make zero sense is because, okay, so if there's one night a year where all crime is legal, that's all well and dandy, but the whole movie franchise focuses on everybody suddenly losing their collective mind and deciding to be, you know what sounds like a great idea? First-degree murder. First-degree murder sounds like a great way to do it. And all I could ever think of was, all crime is legal. I know the first thing I'm doing, I'm gonna go shopping for all kinds of stuff, get all my Christmas shopping out of the way, so I don't have to go spend real money on doing it. Thievery, right? I went to thievery first, and somebody had to tell me, no, crime is legal, but that's illegal still. And I was like, wait. What? That seems silly. Like, if all crime is legal for a day and everybody gets their urges out, do you know how much you would save on everything if you could just let people be total crazies for like a whole day with no repercussions? To which I then realized, well, most people wouldn't actually be going down the route of the movies. They would actually be doing what you're doing, just free stuff, yes, thank you, and then they would just be content for the rest of the day. They wouldn't have it in them to do anything else, because, believe it or not, most people's first reaction to things is not, yes, it seems like a good day for first-degree murdering. Which is what I think, right, the movies were trying to say. It's like, do you know how outrageous this is? But then the movie franchise just keeps going and going and going, and it kind of loses the plot. Lord of the Flies, luckily, doesn't have this problem. Lord of the Fries, again, welcome to McDonald's, what can I get you? I'll take a extra large Lord of the Fries? Sure. Okay. Lord of the Flies doesn't do this. It has a very concise message of this to this to this, and then at the end of the book, and the end of the movie, they get rescued. And the guy from the Navy that comes to get them literally is just so confused on what they're doing that he basically snapped at them, this isn't how proper British boys act. Which is one of those, my good sir, you've been gone for a hot minute. These kids have been alone for about half a year. You're gonna need to put your high horse away, because they've been through some stuff. Now here's the thing, right, because I have decided that, alright, I'm gonna go fish out one of the books in the family library. I actually found that we still have Lord of the Flies, so that made me laugh like a crazy person, because I was half tempted to tell my nephew, hey, you get a jump start, read it, and already get all your stuff done, and just turn it early, but then I realized, I don't want to be that aunt that helps him cheat, so I just left it on his bed and moved on with my day. I have no idea if he's reading it or not. I'll probably hear about it later. The point is, I flipped through it and I realized something. The imagery in that book was beautiful. I feel like Golding went on a vacation to an island in his youth and it really stuck with him. However, there's not too many undocumented islands left in the world, meaning human beings have pretty much scoured every inch of it. That's really all it is. However, and I cannot stress this enough, when the book was originally written, there were probably still some islands that were definitely uncharted and unknown, or just we knew about them, but they didn't have anything on it of value to people, so we just left it alone. Again, not a bad thing, just something I'm pointing out. The reason why I bring this up is twofold, because having an isolated place where these kids could have free reign of each other and took it to the most extreme negative spot is not a bad writing choice. It can't be a bad writing choice. However, the extreme opposite of that would be they got really good at working together because they had to. It was this or starve to death. Don't starve to death. Mental note to me, start playing that because I think I have that game and I can do it on Twitch. My point is, when you write, you can do any extreme you want to. Lord of the Flies is a great example of this. It took it to the extreme of, well, what if this happened? Worst case scenario only, which is fine. Not a bad way to write, like I keep saying. However, Lord of the Flies has been proven that no, most humans don't react like this. Even if they're scared and paranoid, usually humans tend to congregate together when they're scared. They huddle together. They start leaning on each other more because the idea of other, and I mean anything that's other, is now scary to them. The idea of going off alone is scary to them because nothing else makes sense. That would have been a better way of writing it, but again, this is more of a commentary on these boys specifically being prosh British boys. And having to grow up in that kind of environment means they're very, very mean. They're very cruel to each other all the time anyway. And a half a year on an island is not going to change that. Which, if you grew up in London, I guess that is a way to look at your, society. But most American kids, when they read this book, we're confused because it's like, how did we get here? I feel like we missed something. There's no way this time skip was so vast that they have now just completely skipped moral human decency and gone straight to anarchism. Right? At least my class did. In high school, that was where we went. But again, that is more of a my class thing, and I think my generation thing, because we actually, I don't want to say we didn't use legal means to go find Lord of the Flies, but, we did not use legal means to go find Lord of the Flies. But the family decided to rewatch the 1990 film, and all of us immediately started asking questions. We skipped hard into the narrative, and we're like, we have so many follow-up questions to this plot line. I literally made the joke to my brother, because I was sitting next to him, I was like, this is like when we watched the Purge movie for the first time. We had more follow-up questions for what this universe was than we were actually paying attention to the movie. He's like, we didn't miss too much on the Purge movies, though. This, I think all of us read this enough that we kind of have a memory of it. I was like, oh, that's true. So, I don't know if anybody here listening has never read The Lord of the Flies. If you haven't, I can't even say, no, go read it. That's more of a, do what you want, my guys. There's audiobooks if you don't want to actually read on your own. Then another part of it is, dude, it's not that deep. We're trying to make this cereal spoon into, an Olympic swimming pool of, deep, meaningful storytelling. It could be, but it's also a book meant for you to realize certain people are raised in a very specific way and they're very quick to jump off a deep end. I always took it, and I actually got a C on the paper I wrote about this in high school. I'm still salty about it. These are spoiled kids, right? I don't mean spoiled Daddy's gonna buy me a Lexus on my 16th birthday, sweet 16, party spoiled. I mean, these are firstborn, only child, British boys in the 1900s, World War I, World War II era growing up generation. They're spoiled in a way that means, as far as they have been raised, they have been taught, they have been reinforced, is they can do no wrong. They are right. They are a masterclass in everything they do, no matter what they do, because blah blah blah, God's gift to humankind. No, you're not. You're like 10, 11 years old. Calm your titties. You're not special. But that's not the narrative that was being pushed in Britain at the time. And I mean that on all British children. You also note that this idea of you can do no wrong, you're God's gift to mankind, has also been kind of not really pushed onto, well, the sons and I want to say daughters of people born in China, but most of the daughters don't really make it because they push this narrative in China of male sons are the only thing that matter. And now China is really reaping their consequences, because any woman that was left from the one-child ban doesn't want to deal with the firstborn only children of all of these families, is because they're spoiled little kids in a 30-year-old body. They've even gone on record saying, if I wanted a spoiled little kid, I would have had my own spoiled little kid. I don't want to be busy raising an adult human child that I'm going to have to marry. It's just not happening. These boys probably would have grown up with the same mindset of, I can do whatever I want, I can do anything I need to do. And in their 30s, they would have still acted like this. They would have been frat boys, is what I'm trying to say. Again, not a bad thing, but when you're raised like that, it does bring up complications with everybody else in the world and how they view you. Again, not a bad thing, but it does tend to lean more towards, people don't like you. In all honesty, most people don't particularly like England, the country, not the English, just England, the country, because of all the stuff they've done over the years. All the stuff they've done over the years. Between the colonization, the Crusades. Yeah, I think those are the main major two. Oh no, wait. The war with everybody that they've ever tried to conquer and subsequently having to be... There's a lot, right? I think I'd spend an hour just listing all their stuff in order. The point is, the English are hated because of all the things that England, the country, has been a part of. Now, it's not to say, well, they're the main proprietors of it. No. All of Europe had their hands in the conquering pie. It's just England was just the bigger proprietor of it because, Jesus Christ, you people are everywhere. Because that's what they did. They were everywhere. Again, it's the reason why when Golding, the author of this book, was making a point of, it's about British boys, and British boys in this time period were kind of dicks. It wasn't because he was being hypercritical, it's because he was making a point of, if you know, you know. That's it. That's really all Lord of the Flies is about. It's not about, the way human, civilizations can crumble and shake underneath the tyranny of... no. It's about a bunch of British boys being alone on an island and having to contend with the fact that, no, you're not special. You all have to learn to work together. That's the entire premise of all of it. That's it. That's the premise of all of it. Not a bad book, in all honesty. It's not really a classic as far as I'm concerned, but again, it's been a while since I've read it. So, take this with a grain of salt. This is my viewpoint on Lord of the Flies. It doesn't mean I'm correct about it. That means this is what I personally interpreted from Lord of the Flies, the book / the movie. Now, if you have a different opinion on Lord of the Flies, you're more than welcome to share those opinions. And please come with some kind of evidence that backs it up. Because you saying, I personally interpret it this way because of my feels, alright, I'll listen to your feels idea, but I'm not going to give it as much credence as, say, I have all the facts behind me, and I've got resources, citation here, which is a good thing. One other thing of note, if you guys could please like, share, and subscribe this video, because something YouTube algorithm, blah blah blah, that'd be really great. Also, big shout out to my editor, because he finally got back from vacation, so that's super dope. Also, please go check out all the people that I personally like that are in my channel tab on my channel, right, my community tab. They have awesome videos, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Am I forgetting anything else? No, I think that's it. Alright, with that being said, I love you all so much. Bye!